Olympus!
Say what you want, but the PlayStation 2 has been good to us. Its library is filled with over 1,000 games from just about every conceivable genre, so it's no easy task for a game to stand out. This is especially true in the sequel-driven climate the industry is currently brewing in. That's why the first God of War shocked us with its quality. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. God of War 2 is looking to prove that there's no trickery going on, but does it belt out the system's swan song, or come down with a serious case of laryngitis? The latest chapter in the Chronicles of Kratos finds the God of War suffering from a severe case of ADD. His Spartan army is ransacking city after city, and wenches are at his feet. But the God of War has a name to live up to, and Kratos decides it's time to lead his men by example.
I need no protection.
Fearing the fate of Olympus is hanging in the balance, Zeus decides it's time to intervene, showing Kratos that even the gods are mortal. Rescued from damnation, he sets off to find the Sisters of Fate, the weavers of the fabric of time. Only they will be able to turn back the clock and give Kratos a second chance. It's rare to find a video game with a story to tell that hasn't already been driven into the ground by the movie industry. That's why the alternate Greek mythology explored in the God of War series is so refreshing and gripping. God of War 2 basically empties the bucket, reaching into the darkest corners of these fictitious characters to yank out a drama far more interesting than you'll ever read in a high school textbook. Like any action movie, you'll need to suspend your feeling of disbelief. But video game stories simply don't get much better than this. Like the first game, God of War 2 is 100% linear. There are some hidden areas to discover, but otherwise, everyone who plays the game is going to enjoy the same exact experience. Of course, that's not a bad thing when the experience is this good. The pacing here is nearly perfect. Things start off with a bang, and the first few hours are some of the finest you will ever experience in the medium. The game finds its groove after that, reprising the series' platforming and puzzle elements before the final act, which makes the word crescendo seem meek. Kratos is stripped of all his abilities at the outset, so a big part of the game is powering up the blades while finding new magic and weapons in the process. Each weapon or spell can be bumped up several levels by collecting red orbs. And while each certainly has its place in combat, if you're so inclined, the blades will once again be your best friends. And why not? They're still a blast to fight with. That's not to say that all you'll be doing is ripping into enemies. Like the first game, there's a huge platforming and puzzle element at play, as well as plenty of context-sensitive moments and mind-blowing boss battles. Gone are the long slogs through wave after wave of repetitive enemies. You jump platforms and solve brain twisters just as often as you spill blood in God of War 2, and it keeps the game from ever turning into a drag. At almost twice the length of the first game, there's plenty of adventure to sink your teeth into, and playing it on the various difficulty settings changes the strategy significantly. Once the quest is done, you still have a variety of challenge modes to tackle, and overall, you're getting a lot more value here than you did from the first game. Visually, there aren't many PlayStation 2 games in the same league as God of War 2. The first is gorgeous, and here the bar is raised. The PlayStation 2 is definitely working up a sweat running this game, as evidenced by the persistent screen tearing. But it falls well short of tarnishing its overall presentation. The voice acting and script are just as sharp, and on the whole, God of War 2 basically makes good on the potential of the system.
Everything you have ever known, Kratos, will now suffer because of your sacrilege.
We've been playing hack-and-slash games for a long time, and that's ultimately what God of War 2 is. The buttons on your DualShock 2 are definitely going to get a workout as you pound out combos with the blades. What sets this series apart from the rabble is the depth. There are so many different weapons, and through their various upgrades, it can take a while to master each one. The enemies are still a bit slack-jawed, often standing around seemingly waiting for their turn to be felled. That's not to say the game is easy, it's far from it. With so many enemies looking to take a chunk out of Kratos' hide, you'll have to make ample use of the rage of the Titans. By clicking down on both analog sticks, Kratos will become engulfed in flames and start wrecking shop, giving him a new set of attacks in the process. Then there's the magic, which thankfully can be employed while moving this time around, which gives the game a lot more latitude in setting up combat scenarios. Navigation is another big gameplay element, and Kratos has no shortage of ways to get around. There's a lot of swinging on the chains across huge expanses, and it's handled flawlessly. Hopefully, the Castlevania team will play this game, as it's basically a blueprint of how it should be done in the third dimension. As if all the combat isn't enough, you constantly have to stay on your toes because context-sensitive moments can pop up at any time. While having to pound on the circle button to open doors gets a bit ridiculous by the end of the game, the rest of it is great. The boss fights are the biggest benefactor of this, and the commands are spaced in such a way that you're able to watch what's going on instead of training your eyes on one spot of the screen waiting for the next button to play. Speaking of the boss fights, God of War 2 piles them on, and these aren't generic attack-the-weak spot affairs either. The creativity at work here is impressive, and we haven't played a game with more satisfying clashes since Resident Evil 4. Whoever programmed the camera for this game deserves a gold star. You have no control over it whatsoever, but you don't really need it. You're almost always given a perfect view. The only thing we would have liked to have seen was the ability to go into first person to help with some of the puzzles and navigation. But, like the first game, it's not there. There are a few issues that should be mentioned. First of all, invisible walls everywhere. There are places you should be able to go that you simply can't. There are also some inconsistency issues where navigation is concerned. There are ledges that Kratos can blatantly reach, but the game simply won't allow him to grab onto them until some other condition has been met. It's not a huge deal, but it demonstrates that there's one clear way to complete the game, and can make some puzzles more confusing than they should be. These quibbles aside, playing God of War 2 is about as solid an experience as you'll find. There's flexibility with the weapons and magic. The blend of combat, puzzles, bosses, and context-sensitive moments is nearly perfect. And most importantly, it's just a blast to play. For every video game system, there's a piece of software that defines its capabilities. God of War 2 is that game. It's a thrill ride from beginning to end, and one of those experiences that will cause you to hunker down, turn off your phone, and check out of reality for a few days. There's a certain sameness about it, and there are a couple of hangovers from the first outing, but there's no denying that it's superior. If you're looking for that last game to send your PlayStation 2 out in style, this is it.